All right, guys, so let's go through an example of a specific case study and how you would use all 8 of those cardiovascular program design steps in order to design a comprehensive cardiovascular program for your client. So we're going to go through this client. Her name is Sarah. She's a 34-year-old mother of 2 children. She's gained weight with the birth of each of her children and was unable to lose all the weight. Sarah is currently active around the house with her kids, but does no regular exercise. She's 165 pounds, is 5 feet 3 inches tall, so she has a BMI of 29.2. She would like to get down to her pre-baby weight of 130 pounds. Sarah's resting heart rate is 70 beats per minute. Due to the fact that she's works full-time and is a mother, she does not have a great deal of time to exercise each week. Currently, Sarah can only commit to training for 45 minutes 3 times a week. So step 1 in our cardiovascular risk factor, her cardiovascular assessment is to find out what her risk stratification is and what are her risk factors. So let's go back to our ACSM chart here, and we will do our pre-participation health screening. So does the individual currently exercise? No, she does no regular physical activity. So does she have any cardiovascular, metabolic, or renal disease or signs or symptoms that suggest that she does? She didn't say anything about high blood pressure, about diabetes. We didn't get any of that information. None of that information was given to us, and nothing was listed that she had any signs or symptoms of any of the diseases. So again, that would be no. So follow the flow chart down. So no medical clearance is necessary. Light to moderate exercise intensity would be recommended, and we can gradually progress to vigorous as long as we follow those ACSM recommendations. So our only risk factor that we found for Sarah was that she is sedentary and that she will not need medical clearance. Okay. So our step 2 is stage of conditioning. So what stage of conditioning would you think Sarah would be in? We have 3 options: initial, improvement, or maintenance. So because our client is not doing any currently regular physical activity, she would be in that initial stage. Okay. Step number 3 is to create some goals for Sarah and make them SMART. I just kind of came up with 2 goals for the client. Again, yours could look totally different, but just make sure that you make them SMART. So Sarah will track her food for 1 week using MyFitnessPal app, and we'll review it together after 1 week. Another goal would be Sarah will plan to be active with her kids at least 1 day a week or on the weekend for 30 minutes. This could include biking, hiking, or playing soccer, and we will evaluate how this is going after 3 weeks. Okay. Another great option was, I think it said, so we didn't get a ton of information about Sarah's eating habits, but we definitely could ask her more about that, see if maybe she eats out a lot. Another option would be to try to encourage her to start making her own food at home. Things like that are all great options. She works full time. Can she use her lunch breaks or maybe even some of her 15-minute breaks to walk the stairs at her office? Or does she have the option to go for a walk outside during some of her breaks? So just getting in some more activity throughout the day, those would be great options for Sarah as well. Step number 4 is going to be going through our cardiovascular scores that we were given. No VO2 max test results were given for this client. The only thing that we were given was that her resting heart rate is 70 beats per minute. Okay. Step number 5 is going to be to calculate Sarah's target heart rate range using 50 to 85% of heart rate reserve. So we don't know her max heart rate because we weren't given that information. So we will just have to use 220 minus her age. So that would be 220 minus 34 years old is 186 beats per minute. So her max heart rate is 186. and then we need to determine 50 and 85% using the heart rate reserve method. I did that down here for you. I'm not going to go through that again since I just went through it in the other screencast, but if you have questions about that, let us know. And then step number 6 is going to be to use the FIT recommendations and to create a 2-week calendar for the client as far as what it would look like. So if you remember on the previous screencast, I showed you table 7.4. So we need to determine in which of these categories our client is going to fall in. The first category is sedentary, no habitual activity, no exercise, and extremely deconditioned. Now, we know Sarah runs around after, I think her kids were like 4 and 6 or something like that. So she is probably not just sitting around all day when she gets home from work. So sedentary probably would not fit for her. Minimal physical activity means that she's doing no exercise and she's moderate to highly deconditioned. She may fall into that category. I think a more realistic category for her is probably going to be sporadic physical activity because she said that she's active with her kids, but she is not exercising regularly. So she's doing suboptimal exercise, and she's probably mildly to moderately deconditioned. So if it were me, I would put her in the sporadic physical activity category. Again, if you put her in the minimal physical activity category, that is not wrong. Generally, most clients will fall in between 2 categories. And as long as you can justify it, that's right. Now, if you told me that Sarah had high amounts of habitual activity and she could exercise at a vigorous or intense exercise, I would definitely tell you you were wrong because obviously she's not doing any physical activity. But minimal or sporadic are probably going to qualify for this client. So that's where you go, and you will see a chart just like this on your homework, and you will just fill it in. So using that chart, using the information from the 7.4 chart. So sporadic physical activity. Her physical fitness classification is fair to average. Her initial, she's in the initial stage of conditioning. She's going to exercise 3 to 5 days a week with a heart rate reserve of 55 to 70%, 30 to 90 minutes a day, and 200 to 300 minutes per week. Again, I got all that information just from right here, moving across chart 7.4. Okay. So then you will begin to design that 2-week program for your client. Sarah told us that she only has 3 days a week to exercise. So our frequency we're going to give her in accordance with our frequency that ACSM recommends is 3. ACSM recommends 55 to 70% of heart rate reserve. So you're going to find that out for your client. Do the math. Sarah will start out at 30 minutes per session or 90 minutes per week total. She's going to exercise 30 minutes a session, and then again the 3 times a week, giving us 90 minutes per week total. Remember, 30 minutes a day was the lower end of that recommendation, and since we're just starting her off, that's what we want. Sarah will start out biking and walking because these are total body dynamic based movements that will vary in impact. So we're having her doing an impact based exercise, which is walking, and then non-impact, which will be biking. Okay. Her weekly volume of exercise will be 90 minutes. And ACSM really recommended that her volume per week should be 200 to 300 minutes. We cannot feasibly reach this with Sarah at this point because she is at such a low exercise ability right now, and we're just starting off with her. So 30 minutes a week, 30 minutes a session 3 times a week is going to be a very realistic starting point for this client. Okay. And then our progression, as I talked about in the previous screencast, we want to increase her time by 10% from week 1 to week 2. So 90 minutes in 1 week times 10% will be an additional 9 minutes a week in week 2. So Again, 9 minutes, we can round that up to 10. So therefore, she's going to exercise 100 minutes in week 2. Then you will see a 2-week fitness plan, and this is what you will come up with. Your plan should include the activity that the client will be doing, the time of the activity, their heart rate range, MET level, and total calories burned. Okay, so Sarah said she could exercise 3 times a week. I'm going to have her walk at a moderate pace, which is going to be a 3.5 MET level. I found that by using my energy expenditure on my energy expenditure calculation sheet, and gave you a variety of MET levels. There's also a link to a website with varying different activities of MET levels, so feel free to use that as well. So we know that's a 2.5 net MET level. We're going to have her exercise 30 minutes. Her heart rate will be 134 to 151 beats per minute, and I know that because ACSM recommended 55 to 70% of heart rate reserve. So I just did the math. So then I'm going to actually do the math and find out how many calories my client is going to burn during this activity. So I'll use that 0.0175 equation times my net MET level times my client's kilograms. It said that Sarah was 165 pounds. So to get that into kilograms, we're just going to divide by 2.2. So Sarah will burn 3.28 calories per minute. I want to know how many calories she's burning in my 30-minute session, so 98 calories. Okay. On Tuesdays, I gave Sarah bicycling, which was a 4 MET activity level, again for 30 minutes. Heart rate range is the same. I did my math to determine that she's going to burn 118 calories per session. So she is going to walk on Sunday, she's going to bike on Tuesday, and then I'm going to give her walking again on Thursday. Okay, same thing that she had on Sunday. So that's what her week 1 will look like. Her week 2, I'm just going to increase my time by 10 minutes total. So I chose to break it up into adding 5 minutes for each session of her walking. Okay, if you wanted to, you could have kept for week 2, I could have kept her walking at 30 minutes and increased her biking to 40 minutes, and then kept the walking on Thursday again at the 30 minutes. Okay, so you decide how you want to add up that extra 10 minutes for your client. Okay, so again, just make sure you're doing the math to finding out how many calories your client is burning. So if we look at this just from a realistic weight loss, roughly Sarah is going to burn in her week 2 roughly around 350 calories per week from exercise. 350. That's not a lot of calories in a week of exercise, right? So that's why we don't want to give our clients those weight loss goals so early on. We need to build that base. We need to get Sarah exercising at a much higher MET level in order to be burning significant calories and really helping to get that weight off. Okay, so this is just an example of a case study. You have a case study for homework, and I wanted to lay this out for you so that you could understand kind of what I would expect your homework examples to look like, and where you would find that information. Okay.